What you are about to hear is a work of fiction. The people, places, and events depicted in this story are products of the author's imagination or used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual individuals, living or deceased, or to real situations is purely coincidental. These stories may explore themes of crime, injustice, and human suffering. While fictional, they reflect real emotions and difficult truths that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
You think you can steal my family's land with fake papers? Well, let me show you what real evidence looks like buried in Irish soil. Those words would echo across the rolling green hills of County Cork 3 months later, but on this gray October morning, Rosalind Keane stood in her kitchen staring at an empty metal box, her hands trembling as she realized her worst fears had come true. Please, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know just how far our stories reach. The safe sat open on her kitchen table, its contents scattered like autumn leaves. Birth certificates, old photographs, insurance papers, everything was there except the one document that mattered most. The deed to Keane Farm, 200 acres of the finest soil in all of Ireland, passed down through 4 generations of her family, was gone. Rosalind sank into her late husband's chair, the worn leather still holding the faint scent of his pipe tobacco. At 63, she had weathered many storms, droughts that withered crops, floods that washed away months of work, and most recently, Declan's death from cancer just 8 months ago. But this felt different. This felt like theft. The October wind rattled the farmhouse windows as she tried to remember the last time she had seen the deed. It had been there 3 weeks ago when she'd shown it to Patrick Brennan, her neighbor, during one of his increasingly frequent visits. Patrick and his brother Seamus owned the adjacent farm, though their land was rocky and less fertile than hers. They had been so helpful since Declan's passing, offering to help with paperwork, maintenance, even bringing her fresh bread from the village. Too helpful, she whispered to herself, a chill running down her spine that had nothing to do with the October air. The phone rang, jolting her from her thoughts. Patrick's cheerful voice filled the kitchen. "Morning, Rosalind. Seamus and I were wondering if you'd had a chance to look through those government papers we brought by yesterday. You know how these tax fellows can be. They don't like to wait." Rosalind's mouth went dry. "Patrick, I can't find my property deed. It was in my safe, but now it's missing." There was a pause, just a beat too long. "Oh, that's terrible news. You don't suppose it could have been misplaced during all that paperwork sorting?" "No matter, we can help you get a replacement from the county office. Might take some time though, and you know how urgent these tax matters can be." After hanging up, Rosalind stared at the stack of official-looking documents the Brennan brothers had brought her. The letterhead read Irish Revenue Commissioners, and the papers claimed she owed nearly 50,000 euros in back inheritance taxes on the farm. The amount was staggering, more money than she'd see in 5 years of farming. But something felt wrong about the papers. The language was slightly off, too formal in some places, too casual in others. And why would inheritance taxes be owed now, 8 months after Declan's death, when the farm had always been in both their names? That evening, as storm clouds gathered over the hills, Rosalind called her nephew Liam in Dublin. At 34, Liam was a successful solicitor who had always been close to his uncle Declan. She had been reluctant to burden him with her troubles, but desperation was setting in. "Aunt Rosalind?" Liam's voice was warm but concerned. "You sound upset." She explained about the missing deed and the tax papers, reading portions aloud. There was a long silence on the other end. "Aunt Rosalind, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Don't sign anything, don't give anyone any money, and don't let anyone into the house without me there. I'm driving down tonight." "But the Brennans said if I don't respond to the tax notice by Friday." "The Brennans aren't tax officials, and something about this stinks to high heaven. I'll be there by midnight." Liam arrived as promised, his BMW crunching up the gravel drive just as the grandfather clock in the hall chimed 12. tall and lean like his uncle, with the same sharp blue eyes. He embraced Rosalind before spreading the suspicious documents across the kitchen table. "These are forgeries," he said after examining them under a magnifying glass. "Good ones, but forgeries nonetheless. Look at this watermark, it's slightly off-center. And this signature stamp? I've seen the real Revenue Commissioner's stamp, and the font is different." Rosalind felt a mixture of relief and anger wash over her. "So I don't owe the money?" "Not a penny of it, but we have a bigger problem. Someone has gone to considerable trouble and expense to create these fake documents. This isn't a prank, it's fraud. And I'd bet my law degree that whoever took your deed is behind this." They spent the next hour going through every interaction Rosalind had had with the Brennan brothers since Declan's death. The pattern became clear: small favors that required access to the house, casual questions about finances and legal matters, offers to help with government paperwork. "They've been planning this for months," Liam concluded. "The question is, what's their endgame?" The answer came the next morning when Patrick and Seamus Brennan knocked on the farmhouse door. Patrick carried a leather briefcase, while Seamus held a clipboard and wore what he probably thought was a sympathetic expression. "Rosalind, we've been worried sick about you," Patrick said, settling his bulky frame into a kitchen chair uninvited. "Seamus and I talked to our cousin who works in the county office about your deed situation." Seamus nodded solemnly. Terrible business having to replace lost documents. Could take months, maybe years, and with those tax penalties growing every day. "But we've come up with a solution," Patrick continued, opening his briefcase. "We know you're struggling financially, what with Declan's medical bills and all. So we're prepared to make you an offer for the farm. Cash, today, enough to pay those taxes and give you a nice nest egg for your retirement." He slid a check across the table. Rosalind's eyes widened, not at the amount, but at how insultingly low it was. 50,000 euros for land worth over $1 million. "That's very generous," she said carefully, "but I think I'll wait for the deed replacement." The brothers exchanged glances. Seamus leaned forward. "Rosalind, you need to understand, those tax penalties compound daily. By the time you get a new deed, you could owe double what you owe now. The government might seize the farm anyway. Whereas we're offering cash today," Patrick added, "and you know we'll take good care of the land, keep it in the neighborhood, so to speak." From upstairs came the sound of footsteps, and Liam appeared in the kitchen doorway. The Brennan brothers' faces went pale. "Gentlemen?" Liam said pleasantly, extending his hand. "Liam Keane, Rosalind's nephew. I'm a solicitor in Dublin. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation about tax penalties." Patrick recovered first, forcing a smile. "Ah, family looking out for family. That's wonderful. I'm sure you'll advise Rosalind that our offer is quite reasonable, given the circumstances." "Oh, I've already given her my advice," Liam said, pulling out his phone and tapping the screen. "In fact, I've been in contact with the revenue commissioners about these alleged tax documents. Fascinating conversation." The color drained from Seamus's face. "What did they say?" "They said no such tax assessment was ever issued for this property. In fact, they said someone presenting forged revenue documents is committing a serious crime, multiple crimes actually." Patrick stood abruptly, grabbing his briefcase. "Well, there must be some mistake. We were just trying to help a neighbor." "I'm sure you were," Liam said mildly. "Just like you were helping when you took my aunt's property deed from her safe." "That's a serious accusation," Seamus blustered. "You can't prove anything." "Can't I?" Liam smiled. "You know, it's amazing what people will say when they think no one is listening." Over the next week, Liam worked methodically to uncover the full scope of the Brennan brothers' scheme. A private investigator friend discovered that Patrick had been inquiring about property developers interested in agricultural land near the village. The brothers weren't planning to farm Rosalind's land. They intended to sell it to a development company for over 2 million euros. But Liam's most crucial discovery came from examining the county clerk's office records. Michael O'Sullivan, a clerk who had always been friendly with the Brennans, had been accessing property records for multiple farms in the area, including several elderly owners who had recently faced similar tax problems. "It's a systematic operation," Liam explained to Rosalind as they sat by the fire one evening. "They identify vulnerable property owners, steal the deeds, create fake tax assessments, then swoop in with lowball offers to help. O'Sullivan provides inside access to the records." Rosalind stared into the flames. "How many others have they done this to?" "At least 3 that I can prove, possibly more. The O'Brien farm, the Walsh property, old Mrs. Fitzgerald's cottage, all sold under duress in the past 2 years. We have to stop them." "We will. But we need evidence that will stand up in court. Right now, it's all circumstantial." That's when Rosalind had an idea that would have made her farming ancestors proud. If the Brennans wanted to play games with buried evidence, she would give them a harvest they'd never forget. "Liam," she said slowly, "what if we planted some evidence of our own?" The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Over the next 2 weeks, Liam created a series of documents that would appear to implicate the Brennan brothers in land fraud schemes involving properties in 3 different counties. These weren't real, they were carefully crafted fakes that would be obviously false to any investigator but would look convincing to the brothers. Meanwhile, Rosalind played her part perfectly. She appeared increasingly desperate, mentioning to neighbors that she was considering the Brennans' offer. She made sure word got back to Patrick and Seamus that she was struggling to pay basic bills. The trap was set on a foggy November morning. Rosalind called Patrick, her voice shaking with manufactured desperation. "Patrick, I've been thinking about your offer. Maybe I should consider it. But I'm scared about those legal complications Liam mentioned. What if there are other problems with the farm I don't know about?" Patrick's voice was eager. "What kind of problems?" "Well, Liam found some old documents in Declan's papers, legal issues with property boundaries, disputes with previous owners. I'm worried that if anyone investigates too deeply..." She let the implication hang. Patrick took the bait. "Where are these documents now?" "I buried them behind the old stone wall near the oak tree. I was so scared someone would find them and cause more trouble. But if you and Seamus are willing to take on those risks by buying the farm..." That night, hidden cameras that Liam had installed captured Patrick and Seamus Brennan digging frantically behind the stone wall. But they found more than they bargained for. Along with the fake problem documents they'd come to steal, they discovered a waterproof box containing papers that appeared to detail their own crimes. "Jesus, Patrick," Seamus whispered, not knowing his voice was being recorded. "These papers, they know about the O'Brien farm. And the forged tax documents. How did they get this?" Patrick's face was grim in the infrared camera's view. "Doesn't matter, we have to destroy all of this." "But what if there are copies? What if the old woman has been playing us?" "Then we finish this tomorrow. Get her to sign the papers before she can cause any more trouble. Do whatever it takes." The next morning, the Brennan brothers arrived at the farmhouse earlier than expected, their demeanor noticeably different. Gone was the pretense of neighborly concern. Patrick's face was hard, and Seamus kept checking his watch nervously. "We need to finalize this deal today," Patrick announced, spreading papers across the kitchen table. "No more delays." Rosalind, playing her role, wrung her hands. "I don't know. Maybe I should wait for Liam to review everything." "Liam's not here," Seamus said bluntly. "And frankly, Rosalind, you don't have a choice anymore. Sign the papers or we'll make sure those tax problems become very real very quickly." The mask was finally off. But what the brothers didn't know was that Liam was upstairs recording every word, while Detective Inspector Katie Murphy of the Court Garda waited in her car at the end of the drive. "Are you threatening me?" Rosalind asked, her voice gaining strength. Patrick leaned forward menacingly. "I'm telling you facts. You owe money you can't pay, on a farm you can't prove you own, to people who don't forgive debts. Sign the papers or lose everything anyway. And what about the other farmers? The O'Briens, the Walshes? Did you threaten them too? Seamus shifted uncomfortably. That's none of your business. Oh, but it is my business, Rosalind said, standing up. Because you see, gentlemen, I know exactly what you've been doing. The forged documents, the stolen deeds, the corrupt clerk, I know about it all. Patrick stood as well, his face flushing red. You can't prove anything, old woman. Can't I? Rosalind smiled, pulling out her phone and tapping the screen. The brothers' own voices filled the kitchen, recorded from their midnight dig. These papers. They know about the O'Brien farm. And the forged tax documents. The blood drained from both men's faces. You think you can steal my family's land with fake papers? Rosalind continued, her voice gaining power. Well, let me show you what real evidence looks like buried in Irish soil. That's when Liam emerged from upstairs, followed by Detective Inspector Murphy and 2 uniformed guards. Patrick and Seamus Brennan, Murphy announced, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, theft, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. As the handcuffs clicked shut, Patrick looked at Rosalind with a mixture of rage and disbelief. How did you know? Rosalind smiled. Son, I've been farming this land for 40 years. I know when someone's trying to plant weeds in my garden. The investigation that followed revealed the full scope of the Brennan brothers' operation. Michael O'Sullivan, the corrupt clerk, had provided access to property records for over a dozen farms. 6 elderly farmers had already lost their land to the scheme, selling for fractions of the true value under pressure from fake tax assessments. But justice in rural Ireland has a way of coming full circle. The recovered properties were returned to their rightful owners, and the development companies that had unknowingly purchased stolen land faced their own legal troubles. The Brennan brothers' assets, including their own farm, were seized to pay compensation to their victims. 3 months later, on a bright February morning, Rosalind stood in her kitchen preparing breakfast for a special guest. Her grandniece Emma, Liam's 12-year-old daughter, was spending the weekend at the farm, eager to learn about the family land. Tell me again about the seed trick, Aunt Rosalind, Emma said, spreading jam on her toast. Rosalind chuckled. Well, sweetheart, your father always said the truth has a way of growing when you plant it in the right soil. We just gave it a little help. And the bad men are in jail forever? For a good long time anyway. Long enough for all the farmers to get their land back and start fresh. Through the kitchen window, Rosalind could see the new organic certification sign Liam had helped her install. The farm was thriving under its new sustainable practices, and the compensation from the legal settlement had allowed her to modernize equipment and expand operations. Are you going to teach me how to plant things today? Emma asked. Indeed I am, Rosalind replied, ruffling her grandniece's hair. But first, let me tell you something important about farming. The most valuable crop you can grow isn't wheat or potatoes or even the finest vegetables. What is it then? Rosalind looked out at the rolling green hills that stretched to the horizon, land that had been in her family for generations and would remain so for generations to come. Trust, sweetheart. Trust and truth. Plant those in good soil. Tend them with care, and they'll grow strong enough to weather any storm. As they walked hand in hand toward the fields, Emma chattering excitedly about seeds and seasons, Rosalind felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with successful harvests or legal victories. This was about something more fundamental, the preservation of legacy, the protection of family, and the simple truth that some things are worth fighting for. The Keane farm would endure, as it always had, rooted in good Irish soil and nurtured by generations of love, courage, and the unshakable belief that justice, like a well-tended crop, will always find a way to grow. Behind them, the February wind whispered through the oak tree by the old stone wall, where fake evidence had once been buried and real justice had taken root. It was a sound Rosalind had heard all her life, the sound of home, of belonging, of land that could never truly be stolen from those brave enough to fight for it. The harvest of truth had been gathered, and it was sweeter than any crop that had ever grown in County Cork. Thank you for listening until the end. If you enjoyed the story, please consider leaving us a like. This helps us reach more people.